I am sure you know what the word nationalism means. That's something very, very important, and nowadays is the origin of a lot of problems. So in Spain we have domestic problems with these nationalisms, with these independentisms, in Catalonia, in the Basque land, but also in other countries there are problems related to nationalism. Part of the Ukrainian-Russia conflict is based on nationalism. Russia, Vladimir Putin, doesn't recognize Ukraine as an independent country. Actually, there are regions in Ukraine that are being named as different countries. They want to be independent, or they want to be part of other country because they consider themselves not Ukrainians but Russians. So this problem, nationalism, is a huge problem, and this concept started in the 19th century especially. So if we check for nationalism in the Wikipedia, for example, so you can see that nationalism, it's just an idea, it's a movement. It's based on the idea that a nation is the same as a state, but sometimes it's not exactly the same. For example, Indians in North America, what nowadays is the United States, they said they were nations. Apaches, Sioux, they said they are a nation, but actually they didn't have a state. They were groups of tribes who were hunting, and they were, most of them, nomads. They went from here to there, and they hadn't a state. But nationalism said a nation and a state is exactly the same. And they said if there are certain characteristics we have in common, we have the right to create a state. So this is the reasons every nationalist gives. And that's going to be really a problem in this Europe. If you take a view of this map, you can see the states that exist. And this is very simple. For example, the blue one, the Confederation of Prussia, the kingdom of Prussia, it was a mix of states. There are other states so small that we cannot see in this map in Germany. So in Italy, you can see here there is a kingdom of Italy, but at the beginning of the 19th century, Italy was divided into a lot of different states. So there are a lot of states because they have something in common or something different, and this map is going to be reorganized during this 19th century. So what is the nationalism? Nationalism says the political boundaries, the boundaries of a country, should be established according to certain characteristics. For example, religious. If we share the same religion, perhaps we should be a country. If we have the same ethnic characteristics, we are everybody brown and with dark hair, so we have something in common, perhaps we should be a different country. Or linguistic, if our language is different from others. So they say, nationalism, they say, according to these characteristics, the boundaries should be established. And that's a problem, for example, for the biggest of the empires in this period. That is the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Austro-Hungarian Empire was controlled by an emperor, an Austrian emperor, but actually their boundaries were very difficult, talking about ethnics and languages. Here you can see different colors, different ethnics, and how they are spread there. So for example, Germans, maybe Germans are distributed very unequally, different places of this state. So it's very difficult to establish boundaries only for German speakers in the Austro-Hungarian monarchy, because they are spread. So I have something similar in Spain, nowadays too. So you have different areas and they have different languages, but they are not exactly the Spanish boundaries. So this is related to states that exist, and inside they have different differences, different languages, different groups. So nationalism can be, both sides can be unification states. If there are different states who have something in common, they can decide to integrate because they share something, they share an identity, and they create a new country. Or just upside down, a big state with a lot of different communities inside, and these communities decide to create new, smaller states. So that is a disintegration of states. What's going to happen? A lot of conflicts, of course. So here you can see two examples of unification of states. So that was the German states and the Italian states. Plenty of different kingdoms or duchies or republics too. All of them decided to unify to create only one country. For example, Italian states along a process we are going to study, they created a new country called Italy. That's the Italy we know nowadays. And exactly the same happened in Germany. Germany, there were 39 different states, and along a process they created a new big state called Germany, what nowadays we know as Germany. But on the other side, we have the disintegration of states. For example, here you can see a view of the Ottoman Empire map. And this map has different countries. You can see there people in Greece. This region of Greece is part of the Ottoman Empire, but they are Greek. They speak Greek. You can see there a region called Romania, where people who are living there speak a different language. Romanian, Bulgaria, exactly the same. Serbia, exactly the same. So all of them are part of the Ottoman Empire, but they have something in common in these areas, and they want to create independent states. So they are going to make something to change that. So here you see this is a map. The one big problem is the Austrian Empire, Austro-Hungary Empire. So here you can see a map of the ethnic groups in Austria-Hungary. This is at the beginning of the 20th century, this map. In the 18th century in the 19th century is exactly the same. This is the ethnic map, and these are the provinces in Austria. As you see, they are not exactly the same. They are a bit different. So there are people who probably consider themselves as in the wrong province, or this province is not according to my language, my religion, or whatever. So the Ottoman Empire is going to suffer exactly the same. Different countries will decide to do something different, and this empire will be disintegrating along a lot of years. And now let's focus on causes. Why the nationalism exists? You remember the Napoleonic Empire, how Napoleon conquered most of you. So when you are conquered, there is a reaction, a natural reaction, and we are seeing that perfectly well in the war between Ukraine and Russia. Ukrainians and Russians were more or less the same for us, and language is very, very similar. They consider themselves as something like brothers, but since Russia invaded Ukraine, in Ukraine it happened a reaction, a big reaction against Russia. So something similar happened in Europe when Napoleon conquered Europe. People who were conquered by the French army, they reacted and they said, no, we are not part of this empire because we are different, because we have a different language or whatever. So there is a reaction against the Napoleonic invasions. And at the same time, this period, 19th century, is the age of Romanticism. We are going to study that in arts, but in this period, the art is based on feelings. And these feelings, nationalism is an idea, it's more or less a feeling. I feel myself Spanish, cannot change, or I feel myself, I don't know, Belgium, cannot change that. I feel, that's what I feel. So this matter of feelings are very, very popular in this period. So these feelings, talking about nationalism, make very, very difficult to make reasons about that, because if we feel we are a different country, we should be a different country. And last step towards this rise of nationalism was the industrialization. We are going to study a couple of units the process of industrialization, how Europe became an industrial area. And this industrialization was very, very important for the high bourgeoisie, for rich people who wanted to make trade, to trade with other areas, to produce products and sell and buy. And for them, the boundaries in a country were a problem. For example, here in Spain, it was very, very usual. When you go to a city, you must pay taxes to go inside the city and sell your products. Or if we are trading with other city, with other area, we must pay taxes. So that means the trading is very, very uncomfortable and very expensive, so the trade is very low. So these people, these rich people, they want to change that. They want to unify, to eliminate these taxes, these boundaries, just to trade freely. So these three factors, Napoleonic wars, the industrialization, and this romantic feeling, this romantic art, combined led to a rise of nationalism. So every country tried to recognize themselves as different. They pay attention to their past, their legends, to explain how they are feeling different and how they should be a different country.
For centuries, modern-day Germany was divided amongst hundreds of states, which were somewhat united in the Holy Roman Empire. German-speaking Austria was the most powerful state in the Holy Roman Empire. However, during the Reformation, their control over the German states dwindled. Also, in the 18th century, Prussia became a kingdom, expanded its borders, and became a dominant power in Europe. Then, during the Napoleonic Wars at the beginning of the 19th century, Napoleon created the Confederation of the Rhine out of his conquests in Germany. As the war progressed, German speakers began to feel a sense of unity, and eventually, when Napoleon was on the retreat, Germans from all states, particularly students in the Lutzow Corps, began to volunteer to fight for the Prussians against France. In the wake of the Napoleonic Wars, a German confederation was formed. However, it was ineffective at stopping the rivalry between Prussia and Austria, and calls for unification began to grow stronger. For instance, in 1832 there was a large festival at Hamsbach Castle supporting unification. In 1833 the Prussians formed the Zollverein, a customs union which gradually expanded and tied the economies of some German states together and away from Austria. But the calls for unification as well as liberal reforms grew louder and eventually caused the revolutions of 1848, which spread across Germany. These revolutions prompted liberals to meet in the Frankfurt Assembly and push for a united German constitution. They also tried to take over the conduct of the war which broke out between Prussia and Denmark over Schleswig-Holstein, but Frederick William IV of Prussia refused and signed an armistice with the Danes, allowing them to retain the disputed region. But in the Frankfurt Assembly, the debates continued on how Germany should be united. Some, mainly Catholics in the south, supported a greater Germany under the leadership of Austria, while Protestants in the north supported a lesser Germany under Prussia. Those supporting Prussian leadership won the vote and offered Frederick William IV the crown of Germany, but the conservative king refused a crown given to him by liberals. Meanwhile, the rebellions had subdued when many German states adopted their own constitution. Fast forward to 1861 and King Wilhelm I became King of Prussia and he appointed Bismarck as his chancellor. Bismarck was quick to advocate that Prussia expand through blood and iron, but wanted to make sure that it remained authoritarian. In 1864 he took advantage of a constitutional crisis in Denmark and declared war, hoping to claim the disputed region of Schleswig-Holstein, and with the help of Austria the two states occupied the region. Bismarck then used the disputes in the region to start a war with Austria in 1866 and force the German states to divide in support of either side. With the help of the newly unified Italy, the Prussians emerged victorious and united the northern states into the Northern German Confederation, with the authoritarian Prussian leaders in control, making the Prussians the dominant force in the unification for Germany. The new confederation had only existed for a few years before disputed succession in Spain worsened their relations with France. Bismarck was able to provoke the French to declare war first in 1871, which gave him the support of the independent German states. The Germans crushed the French in battle and, in the Palace of Versailles, proclaimed Wilhelm I the new Emperor of Germany. The new empire took Alsace-Lorraine from the French and went on to become the dominant power of continental Europe. They, along with the new Kingdom of Italy, greatly upset the balance of power. So Bismarck spent the following decades trying to prevent Germany from being encircled by their powerful neighbours, and, against his will, helped create a German empire. Bismarck also consolidated his power domestically by diminishing the authority of the Catholic Church during the Kulturkampf. Since the fall of Rome, the Italian peninsula was divided among a lot of independent states. Besides the rough geographic position, there was some debate as to whether they really shared a similar culture. Nevertheless, there were no real calls for unification. That is, until Napoleon came along. When he invaded Italy, he created the Kingdom of Italy in the north, harking back to the old constituent kingdom of the Holy Roman Empire. However, when he was defeated, Italy reverted back to independent state. Simply put, there was the ultra-conservative Bourbon-controlled Kingdom of Naples in the south, the theocratic Papal States in the centre, the Austrian Empire directly controlled the northeast and had client states in the centre, Parma, Tuscany and Modena, so the only genuinely independent state was the Kingdom of Sardinia, aka Piedmont, in the northwest. And that's how it was until the revolutions of 1848 swept across Europe. In Milan and Venice, revolutionaries rose up against the Austrians, Sicilians fought for independence from Naples, and in Rome they declared a republic. The Roman Republic was led by Giuseppe Mazzini, who founded a revolutionary group, the Young Italians, and had been launching insurrections for years. However, within a short space of time the rebellions had been crushed. Austrians reconquered the northeast, the Bourbon Neapolitans crushed the Sicilians, and French troops were sent into Rome to reinstate the Pope, and they remained in the city for some time. This, the First Italian War of Independence, therefore failed, but it demonstrated that the new King of Sardinia, Victor Emmanuel II, would lead the unification movement, but he desperately needed a powerful ally. So in the 1850s, with his Prime Minister Cavour, Victor Emmanuel decided to send troops to Crimea to fight the Russians alongside the British and French in hopes of gaining an ally. Eventually, Napoleon III came to their aid. Besides looking to improve his prestige and weakening the Austrian Empire, he had nearly been killed by an Italian revolutionary in 1858, so he hoped to curb this activity. The Franco-Piedmont alliance against Austria was cemented when Victor Emmanuel offered to cede Nice and Savoy to France in exchange for their support. They attacked Austria in April 1858, starting the Second War of Italian Independence. Together with the Central Italian states who had united and ousted their leaders, they emerged victorious against the Austrians within just a few months. However, Victor Emmanuel and Cavour were angered with the French for making peace with the Austrians before they got all they wanted. Nevertheless, Lombardy was annexed, and the Central States then voted suspiciously overwhelmingly in favour of joining Piedmont. Shortly afterwards, a Sicilian revolutionary, Francesco Crispi, persuaded Giuseppe Garibaldi to launch an invasion of Sicily. Garibaldi was a famed revolutionary who had fought around the world, so he was able to recruit 1,000 volunteers, the Red Shirts, and gain limited support from the British. He set sail for Sicily in mid-1860, and once he landed, with the help of some local recruits, fought his way north. He eventually entered Naples in September, welcomed by crowds, and hoped to push on to Rome. However, Victor Emmanuel, who had just defeated Papal states and annexed Umbria, prevented him from doing so because French troops were still stationed in the city. So Garibaldi handed over his southern conquests to Victor Emmanuel, and the Kingdom of Italy was proclaimed in 1861. But they still lacked two notable cities, Venice and Rome. Fortunately for the Italians, Bismarck of Prussia was leading German unification. In 1866, he declared war on Austria in order to become the greater German power. Italy joined in the war against Austria, but their disjointed army was soon defeated. Meanwhile, the Austrians had sought to keep the French neutral, so to make sure of this, they agreed to give them Venice, and this in turn was handed over to Italy. But the Italians would have to wait until 1870 to capture Rome. The Prussians, still trying to unify Germany, declared war on France, starting the Franco-Prussian War. Their speedy gains forced the French to withdraw their troops garrisoned in Rome, finally allowing the Italians to move in. Rome was then declared the capital of the Kingdom of Italy, but the new nation faced a lot of problems. Only a very small number of the population spoke the standardized language, the north and the south were economically and culturally very different, brigands in the south attacked northerners, and after land reforms, millions of people emigrated. On the global scene, Italy would go on to create its own empire, but along with Germany, they greatly upset the balance of power in Europe, and the alliances created as a result of this would help start World War I.